These people need to know that to always look into the things that they fear the most. That if there was one really important thing that I would tell everybody that is listening, or that I would tell you to tell other people who are conspiracy theorists, tell them to look into the things they fear the most, because that is where you will find the truth.
Welcome back, everyone, for another episode. Today with me I have Nathan Kapnicky. So Nate, welcome to the show. It's really glad to be able to talk to you after a few previous attempts.
Thank you, Francisco, and I apologize for taking this long to get on your show. There's just been a lot of things that I have went through and had to go through, and it's been a crazy journey so far, and I'm really excited to do this show with you, and I think it's really awesome what you've done with your show so far, and the work that you've put out, and the people you've had on your show, and I think it's really commendable that more people are starting to come out of the woodwork and do this great work, because this is part of the great work what you're doing, and it is very much appreciated, and it's not easy, and I'm honored to be on your show, man. So thank you.
Yeah, thanks, man, and yeah, no problem. Even if we couldn't do this before, so no worries. Life happens, but anyway, we are here now, and we have quite an interesting topic to discuss. It's also gonna be kind of a controversial one, if you want, because we're gonna discuss the esoteric tradition of Freemasonry. I think there's quite a bit of confusion going on about this subject and secret societies in general, and it's definitely a topic that has become quite controversial, and again we'll try to clarify some of this confusion regarding one of the most, probably if not the most today, I guess, controversial esoteric tradition that there is, the tradition of Freemasonry. So I'd say, let's start by saying what actually is Freemasonry.
Well, it's a very great question. It's a very vast question, vast topic, and I would have to agree it is one of the most, I would say, the most important controversial topics or traditions, because there is so much confusion around it for the reason of keeping people in the dark from this tradition. And before I get into what Freemasonry is, I think it's important to talk about what Freemasonry is not. So when I hear people talk about this mystery tradition, when I hear people say Freemasonry, right away I can tell that they do not know what they're talking about, because they associate Freemasonry with Freemasons. And these are two completely different things, just like a Christian is not Christianity, right? So Christianity would be a teaching. Well, it's the same with Freemasonry, only Freemasonry is a science, right? and it's an art. It's about understanding the soul. It's about understanding the science of the soul, to where Freemasons is a very it's about understanding that these are people. Freemasons are people first and foremost. That's what we have to understand. And people are capable of doing good in this world, and they're capable of doing evil in this world. So therefore, we have to understand there are light Masons and there are dark Masons. There are those who are trying to build a better world, and then there are those who are trying to bring chaos into the world, trying to bring control, trying to, bring a very, dark world that they are, trying to manifest for their own gain. And so we have to understand there are, also Lodge Masons, and then there's outsider Masons. There are, we're all Masons, really, because the truth is we're all building this experience together, and Mason means builder. So we have to understand what the difference is between Masonry and Mason. Okay. And so Freemasonry is not something that is satanic. Freemasonry is not some kind of cult. Freemasonry is not some kind of it's not something that is it's not evil. It's not the Illuminati. A lot of people think Freemasonry is the Illuminati, but the point is that Freemasonry is let's just look at the definition. The definition states that it's a system of morality that is veiled in allegory and illustrated by symbols. Okay, so it's an art, it's a science, right? And so if we understand that, and we have to really pay attention to the word. I think so many people overlook the word. They see Freemasonry, they just don't understand that it is a mystery tradition. It's an occult mystery tradition. And so once we understand that it is a tradition, it is a science, we no longer need to start bashing on Freemasonry. I hear all these people all the time, even in the truth movement, even in the freedom movement, who are bashing on Freemasonry. And that it just, all I hear is ignorance when I hear that, because it's about understanding that this is a science to help us understand how to improve ourselves, how to align in nature better, because it's about understanding that it is it is about it's about the system of it's about natural law and morality that are taught through this system of allegories and symbols. And when we really see that, when we really get into these sciences, we'll really start to see that it's not something that we should be demonizing, because this science, Freemasonry, is one of the oldest, if not the oldest, of all mystery traditions. And it is really at the center of all mystery traditions, and it's really the foundation of all other esoteric systems. But we have to understand the difference between light Masonry and dark Masonry, because this is about understanding that if we are really wanting to see this world improve, then we're going to have to, so Freemasonry is about improving the self, right? So we really can't improve this world without improving the self. But then dark Masonry is about, perverting this knowledge, and it's about using it for one's own will to dominate other people's minds, to to see the world that they want to see at the expense of other people's suffering, and at the expense of chaos, and at the expense of keeping people ignorant of helpful, beneficial information such as natural law and morality that can bring about such a harmonizing, beautiful world. And so this the idea of, you see, what we have to understand is this word Freemasonry is a relatively new word or term, name, and it is, I would say, I know it's somewhere a little over 300 years old, and most people think that Freemasonry is only that old, and we have to understand that it is not. Now, obviously, it did, merge the name, and the lodges did merge, in the early 1700s. But we have to especially in Europe and North America. But we have to understand that the science or the art or the the craft goes, it can be traced back all the way to the dawn of the ancient world. It can be traced all the way back to pre-dynastic Egypt. And so this is how we so once we learn the science of Freemasonry, this is how we are able to communicate with our ancestors, with the elders, with the ancient elders of the ancient world. And what I mean by that is not, we're going to be on some kind of telephone call or some kind of spiritual
direct communication with
there's no direct
with dead people.
With dead people. There's none of that. It's more of, it's really more of communication from them to us, because these people, they knew how important this information was, and they were preserving it in certain ways to, for progeny and posterity, to help us find our sovereignty and maintain self-rulership. And this is what Freemasonry is all about. And, we have to understand that the ancient peoples, especially the stellar people, the people from hundreds of thousands of years ago, from what I know, between 200,000 to 300,000 years ago, we have these stellar people who are they're what's known as the pyramid builders. And this is something that I've learned from Albert Churchward. These people, us in the ancient world, did not have the expression of complex languages to be able to put arcane ideas into systems of words, into a system of words. And, we have to understand that this spirit or this science of Freemasonry back then in the ancient world was expressed through, sign language. It was expressed through symbol. It was expressed through rituals and rites and, gestures. And this all comes back to the land of Kemet in Egypt. And so this is where we really have to go with Freemasonry. This is how we communicate to that time period with Freemasonry. So, you know, Freemasonry is very, very vast. And, you know, one of the things that we really have to understand that can be a little bit hard to understand at first is that it is divided into, you know, two parts, two aspects. There's two aspects to Freemasonry. There is the speculative art and the operative art. So there are, you know, and this can be also equated with the people as well, the Masons. So the speculative Masons and the operative Masons. So we have to understand that Freemasonry is divided in these two, but it doesn't mean that they are necessarily separate in their nature, because we have to understand that the speculative art of Freemasonry is about the building of the internal temple, right? This is about studying the sciences. This is about becoming self-aware to the point where we're, you know, raising above our, you know, our base desires, and raising, because it's about raising ourselves from the dark. It's about, you know, internally, it's about raising ourselves from the ignorance that we have been birthed into, and raising up to enlightenment, raising up to light. And in Freemasonry, that would be also equated symbolically from going west to east. Because we have to, we have to understand that the sun, you know, rises in the east. So the rising sun is akin to the rising light within. And then the setting sun is about the you know, the light going down into the dimness of the self, going into the sleeping self. But it also is akin to, you know, learning that we have to go into the underworld. That's the other idea of the sun going below the horizon line in the west. But the point is to understand that the speculative art is about realizing, you know, self-actualizing. It's about understanding that we have not, we take in knowledge, we take in occult knowledge that we have grown an eye for, because, you know, that's what we have to understand about the occult. It's about understanding that it comes from occultare, which comes from oculus, and oculus is about the vision, about the eye. So it's about having the internal eye to be ignited, to be turned on, to be able to see the unseen world. And that's what Freemasonry helps us do. It helps us understand the unseen forces in nature and the spiritual laws. So then we have what's known as the operative art. And, you know, from what a lot of Masons in the modern world have said is that the operative art has been either, you know, sequestered, or it has been, you know, it has been thwarted because people are holding this information in for themselves and not putting it out. So the operative art is about putting the information out into the world. You know, and you can look at this like the trivium process, where we're, you know, we take in the information, we process that information, and then we manifest this information outwardly. So that way, you know, other people have a chance at learning this type of information. So it's about, you know, it is a form of de-occulting information, but you can also occult information as the operative art as well, because you can hide the knowledge, the information into symbol. into edifices, architecture, and so it's about verbally speaking the information that we have within. It's about putting this information out. This is part of the great work, is putting this information out for others. And if you are in a lodge system, typically you have an oath. I would say more than likely you're under oath. And if you're speaking about this type of information, publicly, then you are breaking your oath. And that's why a lot of Masons, lodge Masons, are not speaking this type of information because they don't want to break their oath. Just so you know, I just want to make this public. I'm definitely not part of, obviously, I'm not part of a lodge system, because otherwise I wouldn't be talking about this information this way publicly. But the point is that we, I forget exactly where I was going with that. I went out too many tangents at once, but it's about understanding the operative art of taking in this information and putting it out, and helping others to help this world become a better place. Because if we are occulting this information, what we're doing is we're withholding this information from the aggregated consciousness. And we live in the age of information, and this information is already out there for everybody. So we all have the ability to know a lot about this information, to where we can really start to see the sciences and the connections in places that we probably couldn't before, because we just didn't have enough information or enough resources. So this is very important that we talk about this type of occult knowledge, because this is the very knowledge that is being used against us to control us, to manipulate us. And once we start to take the time to really get into this type of information, we will see for ourselves. We will really start to see how this information can be used for good or for bad. And I know that I just said a whole mouthful. So
yeah, no, no, that's right. That's pretty interesting. I think it's key. It's key to understand. I mean, understanding this stuff. It's pretty key for really to get into a better state, a better condition, to manifest a better condition in our lives and in our world, until we'll stop having these ideas about Freemasonry and that it's like devil worship or Lucifer worship or of some kind. We won't really be able to go much further in our evolution, I think. So yeah, it's really important to know what that actually is. It's really important to know that it wasn't always about this term itself, Freemasonry, because it was pretty much the old art of the old craft of the ancient Egyptians. So yeah, it's a huge subject, and it's very fundamental to grasp.
Yeah, it is. It's not easy to approach this type of information.
Yeah, especially with much of this. I don't know how to call it exactly, but let's say, conspiracy culture, if you will. So they focus very much on the secret, like the hidden hand behind behind politics and behind power, and and they tend to associate it with the secret societies, basically, and Freemasonry, first among them, so, but as you said, yeah, there is I mean, being secret societies, being secret and having secret oaths and things of this sort, they constituted a pretty good structure for to be infiltrated and utilized for subversive purposes. So, because they already had the secrecy built into them, so it was ideal. It was ideal for infiltrators and people with dark intent. So
absolutely, and these people who have this dark intent, they don't have any. Something that I've really noticed is what they do is they don't want to create anything. They don't want to create anything good in this world because they can't, because they're not creators. They are people who take the knowledge, they take the information, and then they twist it for their own gain, and they hold it over people's heads and make people fear that knowledge. And they will do anything to make people fear that knowledge as much as they can, just to hold that knowledge power differential. Because, when we think about how the pyramid of power in this world works, when those who are at the apex of having this type of knowledge, they are holding knowledge that all the people below in the lower part of the pyramid don't have. They know this information very well, and they know how the structure of the pyramid. They know all the knowledge. It's all concentrated with them. And the people at the bottom, they stay the lower part of the pyramid, they stay in these compartmentalized parts of, or different types of knowledge, where they just don't have the connection. They don't have the connection to everything else in that pyramid. They don't have the connection to know what the top knowledge is. And most of the reason for that is by willful ignorance. Most people do not want that knowledge because because they don't want the responsibility that comes with that knowledge. And they would rather just stay a slave, stay, in that, very low state and suffer, and not care that other people are suffering as a result, or other beings. So it is very, very important to understand that this is knowledge, and knowledge is neither good and it's neither bad. But I'm telling you that anybody listening to this who has their doubts or their negative view on Freemasonry, you are going to find out that your life is not going to, and the life of the world is not going to get any better if you, because it is up to you to become conscious of the knowledge that is being used or waged against you. And people really, really need to wake up to this. People really need to take this more serious. And, it's not easy to convince anybody to look into this. But I mean, I'll just tell you this. When it comes to the Illuminati and Freemasonry and Satanism and Nazism, or any type of ideology or any type of system of or any type of cult, going in and doing thorough research on those things that we fear is what's going to help us overcome that fear, for one. And then it's also going to help shed light on what is true and what is not, because it's about getting to the dogma. It's about finding what is not true and moving past that. But yeah, it's an extremely important topic. And, Freemasonry, we have to understand that it is a spiritual initiation into the mysteries. So right now, you are already being initiated into Freemasonry just by hearing this show, because you are being illuminated. You are beginning your journey to hear this information right now. You're becoming conscious of another side that maybe you never heard before. And that is important, because if you don't become conscious of that, then you stay in fear. And this is the other thing I wanted to say was I really like that you brought up the conspiracy theorists, because what happens is, now what I don't want to do is I don't want to throw conspiracy theorists in the under the bus. But because I think conspiracy theorists at the very least are at least asking questions and realize that something's not right in this world. And I was a conspiracy theorist once, and I didn't have this knowledge. I didn't have this knowledge available to me that I knew of. I was very nescient of this information, and ignorant, obviously, but not willfully ignorant. But the point is that conspiracy theorists are stuck in the R complex, because they're stuck in fear of the rulers at the apex. They're stuck in fear of the secret societies that they believe are out there. And there are secret societies for sure. This is not to say that there aren't.
Not even too secret anymore, I think.
Exactly. They're out in the open.
Yeah.
They're doing this stuff right to your face because they believe. They know, these dark occultists, these dark psychologists of this world, they know that they can go right up to your face, those who are ignorant of the occult, ignorant of the dominators that are ruling this world. They'll go right up to their face and tell them that they're ruling them, and people will just look at them and laugh, because they just have no idea who they're up against and what they're what they're being dominated by. And this is something that I see all the time with this whole conspiracy theorist community is, and these are critical thinkers. Let's not paint them in a total negative light, but these are critical thinkers who just haven't done enough work. Because they're stuck in the R complex. But if you go further in your work, if these people go further in their research and start to see that there is this beautiful occult world that is waiting for them to be self-actualized, then we will start to see a major improvement in the self, in the collective self. These people need to know that to always look into the things that they fear the most. That if there was one really important thing that I would tell everybody that is listening, or that I would tell you to tell other people who are conspiracy theorists, tell them to look into the things they fear the most, because that is where you will find the truth.
Yeah, it's definitely not going to be healthy to live in fear of the teachings of something like Freemasonry. And yeah, well, you said it. You said it yourself before. We want to separate it from the lodge system and the and let's say the corrupt part of it. So separating from the original teachings from from the corrupt teachings, I guess.
Well, I was just going to say, yeah, the corrupt teachings are mostly in the modern age,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, exactly. Yeah,
and so when we look at, and this is why we have to be very eclectic in our work, because if we go right into looking into a lot of the modern Masons' work, a lot of it you will find that they have put out for the public is very exoteric. It is very there's no substance to it, to a lot of it. It is important. The exoteric information is important, but if it doesn't have substance, if it doesn't have the esoteric teachings, then it's really not giving us anything for the evolution of the species. And so, but you will see the corruption. The more that you start to align to truth, the more that you will find dogma within a lot of the teachings. And you will see for yourself, because this is about your journey. This is about the individual's journey to become a better version of the self. And so if you are, studying Masons that have brought knowledge out that is very, surface level knowledge, and you study that, then you're really not getting to the goods. You're not getting to what is beneficial. And a lot of these lodges are just so deteriorated. They're full of people who are not. They are not really even. They don't really. You can tell that they don't really understand the esoteric knowledge of Freemasonry. They don't really, they don't show it anyway. Okay. But you can see, you can tell that if somebody who was truly in the know of esoteric Freemasonry, that they would know better to share that information, because it's about understanding natural law and objective morality, because that is the information that you're not hearing from any of the lodges and from my experience. And I've done, I would say I've done enough homework to see that for myself, because at first I couldn't believe it when I've heard it from other teachers of natural law and of Freemasonry. I have looked for myself, and I have seen that there is just this, exoteric, outside, perverted version of Freemasonry, where they make it look like it's just some kind of gentleman's club full of people who are just, putting out their, just being, nice people, and putting out doing charity work, and all this exoteric, all this, I would even call it virtue signaling Freemasonry, because it's really just about, these people don't really care about the actual occult knowledge. They don't care about the esoteric teachings, because maybe they just don't know them. Maybe it's not being taught in the lodge, and you're just not seeing it. You're not seeing this type of behavior. And really, the only people that are putting out that type of knowledge are people that are not in the lodges. And that's what I am intending to do. That is what I'm trying to do, is I'm trying to take that information and take it into myself, learn it the best that I can, and put it out for others. And people have told me, I've had numerous people tell me that you can't talk about that type of knowledge. You can't talk about Freemasonry because, that's for the lodges only. You can't put out that type of information because you're not one of the lodge Masons. And people who think this way have really bought into a very incredible lie, because that is not how this works. No one is the boss of knowledge. No one is the arbiter of knowledge. Nobody owns knowledge.
Yeah.
And so therefore, knowledge is everybody's. Everybody is inherently bound to knowledge. Knowledge is not something that we have to buy. Knowledge is not something that is separate from us, because it is how we self-actualize. It is here for every person with the ability to take in knowledge and think about that knowledge and put that knowledge out, which is human beings.
If they have the the force of will to do it.
Absolutely.
If they really want that knowledge. Yeah, one of the other things that I wanted to ask you, because there are two concepts that are talked about a lot. One of them is the great work. So, and I know that is an actual Masonic concept, and you find you hear about it also in other occult traditions and esoteric traditions. So I wondered if you could shed some light on the meaning of that term, the great work. So for what is the Freemasonic great work, I guess.
Well, let's. I want to start off with a quote. I want to start off with a quote before I get into that. So here's a really fantastic quote by one of the greatest Freemasons of all time, Manly P. Hall, who said that every soul is engaged in a great work, the labor of personal liberation from the state of ignorance. The world is a great prison. Its bars are unknown, and each is a prisoner until, at last, he earns the right to tear these bars from their moldering sockets and pass, illuminated and inspired, into the darkness, which becomes lighted by that presence. I love that quote. I think that is one of the greatest quotes that sums up the great work. Now, the great work can be understood further by understanding the alchemical magnum opus. So basically, it is, magnum means great or big.
The great work. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, and then opus means work or labor, right? So it's basically related to the greatest achievement by a human being in a lifetime. And the magnum opus is about the alchemical process, right? It's about understanding the ability to when we think about alchemy, we think about turning base metals into gold or turning lead into gold, right? So it's about understanding that we are turning our base consciousness. We are turning the unconsciousness consciousness. We are becoming more conscious, and that means more enlightened. And so the more that we do the labor at the base, and this is akin to the first degree tracing board, on the floor, right? So if we're doing the work on the floor, the checkerboard floor, then we're taking that, the ignorance that we're born into, or the sin, because sin means missing the mark. Sin is akin to a circle, so it's about missing the mark. And so what we're trying to do is we're trying to get to the point, trying to elevate into a point. So when you think about, I'm kind of going a little far here, but when you think of the circle dot, the symbol of the circle dot is an alchemical symbol, right? So the point within the middle is where we are trying to aim for, because that is where the truth is. That is where we find purpose. So if we are starting in the circle on the floor, and then that point raises up, that's a cone. So this symbol, the circle dot in its three-dimensional form, is a cone. So it's about raising and elevating to the peak of the self. And so this is an alchemical process. And once we have become, once we have done the work on the left and right hemisphere of the brain, meaning the aspects, putting in the work to understand that wherever we're failing in the aspects of our life, meaning, maybe we're too analytical in our left brain, our masculine, sacred masculine left brain. We're too analytical or too logical or too over skeptical. That means that maybe we're imbalanced in our right brain, and we need to do more work on the right brain. Maybe we lack creativity or empathy, or we lack big world picture thinking. So this is about understanding that if we are in an imbalance, we are reflecting that back out into the world. And that means we're co-creating imbalance in the world. So the alchemical process is about working on those parts of the hemispheres that need work to find balance, to find that point, right? To find the truth, to find a focal point, or to find equilibrium. And then when we're doing this, what we're doing is we are turning our frequency of base metals, or ignorance, darkness, we're turning that into light. We're turning that into gold. And this is also akin to understanding that if we are, what was I going to say? So in Freemasonry, there is a tool, a measuring tool. And this tool, this long stick, I'm not saying this, the name of the stick, but it's called a 24-inch gauge. So this 24-inch gauge is it almost looks like a ruler, right? Like a maybe a yardstick. And this is a symbol that we measure our time during the day, what we spend our time on. And this measuring tool, this 24-inch gauge, is how we gauge our spiritual life. Because we have to remember, okay, so I want you to think there's 24 inches on this gauge, but 24 relates to 24 hours in a day. And so this is divided into 3 parts, and 3 is associated with as a spiritual number, or it is a spiritual number, but 3 is always associated with the spirituals. Okay, so if the day is divided into 3, it's divided into 3 sets of 8 hours. So if we are to really be doing part of the great work, it is to understand that we are to work 8 hours a day, right? To be able to put food on the table, to be able to have a place to sleep, to be able to, get food and do the things that we need to do, right? And then the other 8 hours, the second, the 2/3 of the second part of the 8 hours is about putting our time into sleeping and eating, and those necessities. But then the other 8 hours is the 8 hours that we put into the self and the creator, to give time to the creator by learning what that means, by taking in information to know who we truly are, always setting time aside to work on the self as much as we work on our job, as much as the time that we put in trying to make man's money, right? So this tool is part of understanding the measurement of the great work. So if we're not putting the time in for the self, then we're really not putting enough time into self-actualizing and harmonizing in nature. And a lot of people are stuck in not even spending any time on the self most of their life. I mean, just imagine that. Imagine never self-actualizing. I mean, that to me is one of the scariest things I can imagine, because of what I know and how powerful it is to know this information. But then to be able to take, so then, what are we putting our work into? What are we spending our time? This goes into spiritual currency, right? So the spiritual currency is about spending time and paying attention. And then, man's currency is about spending money and paying bills, right? So the spiritual currency is, what are we putting our time into? What are we putting our time into? Things that are frivolous and mean nothing, like tons of entertainment and, politics and, crappy education, magazines that have no meaning, porn, things that have no value in our lives, really. A lot of people are putting their time into that and abusing that. They're staying in a perpetual, cage of that type of information. And that is what creates enslavement of the self, because that means that we're not spending the time to self-actualize and, doing the homework and the books and making the connections and starting to really become health conscious and mental conscious and spiritual conscious. We're not working on any type of consciousness. We are, in that
running
state,
away from it, probably.
Yes, running away from it. That is what most people are doing, running away from the awakening, because it's a lot easier to sleep, and it's a lot easier to not do anything. It's a lot easier to just work and come home and, pay your bills, eat and drink and watch TV. That's an easy life. I mean, that is so, looking back, I was like that, and it was lame, man. It was so lame. I mean, there was just, there was no substance, and it's just very, it's a disturbing thing to think that, people who can awaken, can look back and see that. But that's to help us, recognize. I'm glad that I can look back and see that I've come from that. That means I have done work on myself to, go up on that summit of knowledge, to go up on that summit of enlightenment to then really realize, like, oh shit, the real great work is not hitting that summit. The real great work is coming back down the mountain and bringing that light back down to your fellow brothers and sisters who are in the dark, who need help, who need a hand, who need some kind of guidance. And, you know, that is one of the major parts of the great work that is very overlooked, because as you can see, I mean, I know that a lot of people are occulting the knowledge of these mystery traditions and are not, I mean, look at the lodge system. You know, some of them probably are holding a lot of this knowledge and they're not sharing it with those who are in need, because of what their belief system to make them think that, you know, people don't deserve this, or people don't know what to do with this. And it's like, no, you don't understand how intelligent people are.
Yeah.
And
how's that saying? Throwing pearls to the swine. Like,
oh yeah, exactly. And that's you know, that's important too. You know, it is important. You know, I mean, that's why it's important to start at the foundations and work your way forward. You know, you don't want to start telling people about something that's extremely advanced at first. You know, that's why, you know, anytime I approach people who don't know anything about anything, let's just say with Freemasonry or the great work, I'm not going to start by talking about, you know, the third degree in Freemasonry. I'm not going to start by even talking about the degrees. You know, I will start by talking about what it is and what it is not in a very few words, and then just be done with it. You know, and if they want more, then I'll give them more, or help guide them where they can go learn more. It is we definitely have to learn to become good teachers in that way, and be very careful of, you know, the type of knowledge that we put out. You know, I mean, it's not about occulting the knowledge, it's about being careful with how we go about putting the information out there for people.
Yeah, one of the other terms was the lost word that I wanted to discuss a bit. So what's the lost word?
Yeah. So then this is one of the most powerful things that any human being could ever wake up to, because it has all to do with becoming a sovereign human being. And, you know, some of the information that I've already covered kind of helps us understand this lost word. And, you know, it's extremely important to understand that we cannot really know about this lost word unless we are uniting our left and right hemispheres of our brain, meaning the sacred feminine and sacred masculine hemispheres of the brain. So the reason for this is because if we're in an imbalance, then that means that we're really not aligned to natural law. We're really not understanding the difference between right and wrong. So if we start to do the work on ourselves to find that balance, to cause that alchemical wedding, that unification, that unity of you know, uniting the hemispheres to where our, you know, eye becomes light, where we really start to see down the middle, where we erect, you know, that middle pillar of wisdom. That is what we really have to understand because this lost word really does come from understanding that the erection of the middle pillar, the rising of the middle pillar, the wisdom pillar, and especially in the first degree tracing board, because once we understand that this is an action, then we will start to understand that we are not here to be ruled by anyone else, and we're not here to rule over anyone else. We're here to be free, sovereign human beings. And if we do not know how to say no, N-O, to those who are dominating us, to those who want to rule over us, if we don't know how to say this lost word, N-O, then we will not know how to prevent evil or wrongdoing, not only within ourselves, but from others doing it unto us. This lost word is the N-O, but then it's also about understanding the phonetic word, which is to know, right? We have to know. We can't know how to say no if we don't know what the K-N-O-W means.
Yeah, there's definitely there's the similar sound in English, so
right.
That's pretty interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean it's about understanding that this information of natural law, once it is taken in and known, when it is understood, when it's known and understood, then the wisdom is the action. The wisdom is the rhetoric. So to say no is an action. To say no is wisdom. You are speaking wisdom at the moment that someone is doing something wrong. So this is about understanding the trivium process. This is why the 3 is spiritual. This is about becoming spiritual. This is about raising from the material into the spiritual, and this is part of the great work.
Yeah, it's about getting the knowledge of the microcosm and the macrocosm. So knowledge of the self and knowledge of the world around you, and natural law and morality will enable you to put a stop, to put an end to evil and tyranny.
Absolutely.
So.
Absolutely. But yeah, people have, so it's not, this is the other thing, is like, we can't, it's not just a lost word, right? It's about understanding that people have lost their courage. People have lost their balance, and therefore they have lost their way in life. And so if you've lost your way, if you've lost your balance, if you've lost your courage, or you have this laziness or this ignorance, then these are the killers of this lost word no. These are the things that hold us back. So we have to find, we have to, because Freemasonry is about refinement, and that's part of the great work. The great work is refinement. It's about refining ourselves to that point of balance. The circled dot. The dot is the refinement point, right? So it's about understanding that if we are to really make a difference in this world, we're going to have to know. We're going to have to know. We're going to have the knowledge of self. have the knowledge of self through the occult, the spiritual, the unseen forces, and the seen forces. We're going to have all that knowledge to really have a fighting chance to understand how to not be a slave, how to not be enslaved inwardly and outwardly.
All right, so now we will discuss. We will talk a little bit about the Masonic tracing board, the first degree tracing board or trestle board. Here with Nate, we had to actually change some of the software utilized, but here we are, and let's see how it goes this time.
Yeah, so I figure we would just go over some of the basics and maybe get into some deeper aspects of this board, because the truth is this image that we're looking at is like an encyclopedia. I mean, you can just keep on finding new things more and more and more as you get into this image. And the original painting of this Masonic trestle board or tracing board, I'm going to get into what I mean by that. But the actual artist Mason who created this image goes by the name of Josiah Bowring, and he has a set of the 3 degrees and a few different other paintings of these degrees, and they are really, really awesome. I really like them a lot. I think that they really resonate with me the most out of all the other tracing boards that I have come in contact with. But this is what's known as the Masonic trestle board, and trestle board just means basically, like, if you can think of an easel, having an image that you trace upon, right? So what you're trying to do is you're taking this image of the trestle board and you're tracing upon it. That's why you can also call it a tracing board. And there is confusion amongst many Masons who have talked about this. But how I understand it is you are tracing upon the trestle. So you're tracing out yourself and you're tracing out your heritage, or the heritage of the soul, all through history. And this is about helping us get back to origins. So this image is the entered apprentice. And the entered apprentice is about understanding that you have started your journey, and you have started your journey inwardly, and that you have entered a place of science of the self within. So this is called the Temple of Solomon. And when we understand that Freemasonry is about understanding the sun, the moon, and the stars, then we'll start to understand why those aspects are so powerful in this image. So, because they relate to us, we are them and they are us. And when we really think that way, we will start to make very big connections, because this board is a reflection. It's a mirror of who we are. This image is a mirror of our soul. And so as we begin our journey into this image, we start at the floor. We start on the floor of the house, the floor of the lodge, the inner lodge, right? And so why do we start on the floor? Well, it's just like what I was talking about earlier with the great work. You start on the floor in ignorance. You start on the floor in darkness. and what you're supposed to do here, on the floor representing also the earth, or gravity, because this is what we're bound to. We are bound to our material self, but what we're in search for is our spiritual self, because our spiritual journey is about our inner self. So these tools that we see on the ground, once we start to recognize what these tools are, then they become our working tools. They become tools that we align to. So, for instance, the level on the left. This is how we understand how to meet others in a place of under natural law, to have to understand that if we're aligned in natural law, if we're aligned morally, then we are we're meeting on the level. And this is about the strength, that the S on the left pillar, the pillar of Joaquin. This is the S represents strength, and so it's about this strength to get through this journey, but also to rise ourselves to the light, the strength that it takes to rise up off the floor of the house, the inner house, and to the strength to go in search for the law of nature, to understand that if we are to really go far into this journey, that we're going to have the strength to meet on the level, to be moral, to know that it's about principles. And then we have the pillar on the right, the pillar of Boaz, which is the pillar of beauty. This pillar is this is part of understanding the sacred feminine energy. And I forgot to mention that is the S pillar, the left pillar, the pillar of Joaquin, is also the pillar of the sacred masculine. So you have your sacred masculine on the left, and then you have your sacred feminine on the right. And then the tool at the bottom is the plumb rule. And this is to, measure our emotions, to, so we're standing upright in our emotions. And this is about understanding that we have our thoughts and our emotions, and we have to check our emotions, and before we can really proceed any further into the work, because it's about checking ourselves to be ready for knowledge that probably might be a little too heavy on us.
Yeah.
And so it's about that measurement of emotion. And then one of the most powerful tools, one of the most powerful symbols in Freemasonry is that little square tool, which is pointing up towards the W in the on the middle pillar. This is what we act on. This is the measure of our moral behavior. And it is also about understanding the reason that it's pointing up is because it is about understanding that we have to go in the direction up this ladder, but it is above the compass. So you have a compass that is on the floor, and this compass represents the spirit. And this, if the spirit is on the floor, then that means that the material is above the compass. So we're still in our material ways. we have not elevated from our material self upwardly. And so this little square is giving us a pointer. It's trying to tell us that we need to, go in the direction of wisdom to elevate ourselves. And if you see the little book with the square and compass, it's kind of hard to see unless you really blow up the image. But this is the furniture of the house. So it's the VSL book, which is just about understanding the biblical texts that we're going to have to also look into and study and understand how to become masters of the knowledge that it takes to go up this ladder, this spiritual ladder. And then you see this cube in the back, and then there's another one on the left side. So if you see right between the right pillar and the middle pillar, there's a cube, and then between the left pillar and the middle pillar, there's like a rough cube, right?
Yeah.
And that long stick that you see on the rough ashlar, that's what that's called. Those are ashlars. And the stick that you're seeing back there, kind of resting on the rough ashlar on the left, that is the 24-inch gauge, right? And that is what we measure with, because we start out as beings who are in our rough state, right? And so what we're trying to do is to fit ourselves into a perfect or a perfected ashlar. That's the goal. So we start out rough. It's about understanding the principle of polarity. We start out, there's the roughest of the rough, and then there's that perfect, right? That there's that perfected. But it's not that we ever start out like completely, in the rough, because that's subjective. But it's about understanding that we are going in the direction of trying to perfect ourselves to where we are this beautiful, perfect cube of perfection. And this is very allegorical. That's what we have to understand about the second part of the definition of Freemasonry, which is veiled in allegory. So this whole symbol, this whole archetype, this whole image is an allegory of the self. Your journey, your spiritual journey, the hero's journey, is veiled in this symbol. And something I kind of forgot to mention is this is the symbol of natural law and moral law. And because it's about understanding that this is a system, the Freemasonry, the occult teaching of Freemasonry, the esoteric teaching of Freemasonry is about understanding that this board and the other boards, the other tracing boards, are they are about understanding the system of morality, natural law. This really is about understanding the science that we can learn to better refine our understanding of this system, because this system, the system of morality, is it's a nature language. It's the language of nature. And so it's about helping us come back to source, or return to source, to return to nature, to go in the direction of truth. to become enlightened, to be a higher type, meaning, raising into human, true human consciousness in the neocortex, elevating to the neocortex and then igniting the pineal gland. So as we go to what's called Jacob's ladder, when we have enough knowledge, when we've done enough of the research to really to do the groundwork and realize that, okay, there's more to this picture. There's more that we have to do now. Once we have done the work on the sacred feminine and the sacred masculine, because here's the thing: is we have to understand that the pillars represent they are symbolic of our brain. So the left pillar is symbolic of our left brain, and the right pillar is symbolic of our right brain. And so when we're working, this is what I talked about earlier, is when we work on those aspects of the self, what we're trying to do is erect that middle pillar, which is what I was trying to say with alchemy, is fine tuning, refining ourselves to a point where we have a light wedding, where we start to merge both hemispheres to ignite the light in the middle. And so when we erect this wisdom pillar within, what we're doing is we're erecting Jacob's ladder to go further in search of truth. So this is really about taking a leap of faith, because that's why we have the initiate. We have three initiates, right? We have the initiate at the bottom of the ladder, the initiate in the middle, and then the initiate at the top. And these three initiates are, this is part of understanding the spiritual three, or that all things three are spiritual, because it's about, having, taking the leap of faith that truth actually exists, that there really is an objective truth on this spiritual journey. So that first initiate represents faith, and then the second initiate represents charity, and then the third initiate represents hope. So you have faith, charity, and hope. And the third initiate, so it also represents, we have to understand the trivium process here also, because it's about understanding thought, emotion, and action. So the being at the initiate at the bottom is thought, and then middle would be emotion, and then action would be at the top, closer to the sun. And we have to remember that the sun is associated with the left pillar, which is about this is part of understanding the masculine, but it's really about going in the direction of the middle. And that middle pillar really is the action pillar. The ladder is part of understanding the action that we take into the world. So this is the direction that we have to go in search for light, but we have to remember that a lot of the light that we're going to have to find is in the dark. And that means that we're going to have to go. So if you look at the directions of this tracing board, there are 3 or 4 letters at the top of the board, the left of the board, the bottom, and the right. So you have north, east, south, and west. So this is a compass. Okay, this whole tracing board is a compass, because it's about tracing out direction in life. So remember, I said earlier that what we're trying to do is, Masonically, and symbolically, we're going from west to east in search of light. So if you start on the floor, you are in the west direction, and you don't want to go any further than that because that means that you're just going in total darkness.
Mm.
But it's about recognizing that we have to move in the direction of east. And once we have, gone up this ladder halfway, this is symbolically where we find our care to go further, to go all the way and search for truth. And I would say that, this is something I've been talking about lately, is that the reason that most people don't go all the way in search for truth is because they do not find the knowledge or discover the knowledge of natural law and objective morality. And I would say that green initiate represents that, because remember, it's about aligning in nature, and nature is the color green. And so this, we have to understand also that green is in the middle of the visible spectrum of light, of color, which means that the green is akin to the green anahata heart chakra, because it's about igniting the care of the heart. And once we ignite that care to want to know, to align to what is true, what is right, what is correct, what is moral, once we have that knowledge, then we can keep going a lot further. Because, and some people skip right over this. The dark occult skip right over this. They kill this part of the self. They just skip right over the green because they don't want green, because they don't want, that's why they have that ritual at Bohemian Grove, which is, the cremation of care. They crush this, they get that out of the way, they skip over that and go right to, the top. And but the truth is that if we don't take this serious and have that care, then we're not going to have the key that this being is holding by a thread. And also, well, the key is the care. The key to all of this information is care, to care, to want to know. And I'm not talking about, your typical, like, I care about you, or I care about this thing, or I care about paying my bills, or care about my children. No, this is like ultimate care. This is agape care. This is care to go all the way in search for truth. That is when you know that you have found care. When you are using that 24-inch gauge correctly and measuring your day out, where you're disciplined to put the time into the self to want to know, to not only want to know, but to do the great work and then come back down to help others. That's what real care is. So one of the things that we have to see, though, is that there is an anchor behind this being, this initiate, and that anchor represents principles. That anchor is to keep us grounded, okay? Because we can raise all the way up into the clouds. You see that the ladder goes and it kind of fades off, right?
Yeah. To keep us with our feet on the ground, I guess.
Right. And so we have to, if we're going to go up that ladder, we're going to have to keep our feet on the ground. And that's what that anchor represents. And the reason it's in the middle is because it's about understanding we're going to have to, we are going to elevate. I mean, that's one of the purposes of being human, is we have the ability to elevate or levitate. That is the principle of spirituality, is to levitate. And then gravitate is, gravitation is, the material world pulling us down. So we're always in this, pull of, the spiritual trying to pull us up and then the material trying to pull us down. And that is why we have to find balance between the two. And so as we go up, so this is about, putting our emotions in check. And this is about this is part of understanding the sacred feminine principle, because it's about the generative principle. The lady in green it does represent the generative principle, because it's about the principle of care, to generate care. And that's a feminine principle. And because it's about having compassion and empathy and, that generative force. And the generative force comes from that inner sacred feminine power. And once we are moving up towards towards the sun, we get to, the action principle. We get to understand that this is where we have the ability to take the light into the dark. We can't completely see how the ladder is going over to the light, but we don't want to burn our symbolic wings. So that's why we have to leave the light, because we don't want to get too close to the light. We want to, get as close as we can, gather as much light as possible, and then take that light into the night. Take that light into the journey into, because this is all about the journey of the underworld. So this is about recognizing that we have to unite both the masculine, the sacred masculine, and the sacred feminine pillars, and going back into the night of the sacred feminine, the lunar energy, which, here's something else that I haven't said yet, which is, this is the Temple of Solomon. And then there's a reason it's Solomon, because soul, S-O-L, represents the sun. And then O represents the eye in the middle, the encompassing, eye in the middle. And then Mon is also moon. Now, it does also mean one, but it also represents moon.
Yeah. I think there was another interpretation of it, I think, if I recall correctly, in Manlippy Hall, but I don't remember what it was now. But anyway, but I wanted to say the union between the wasn't the union between the masculine and feminine also part of the of that G symbology, because it like the Genesis, the one of the other meanings, like the Genesis. So basically the union basically between the masculine and the feminine.
Right. It's about understanding that when we unite both, and this is something that we can talk about maybe on another show, is the compass and the square, with the G in the middle. And that G represents many things. It's known for representing God. It's representing Genesis. It's representing the generative principle, which I kind of just covered. And then it also represents green. Green's in the middle. But it's about it's about uniting these pillars into the middle to ignite the eye in the middle. But that one of the things that I recognized also is that, so Sol, O, Moon, there's 3 O's. And those 3 O's, when you put 3 O's together, can create, I can't remember the exact name, but it creates the Trinity.
Oh, I see. Okay.
But the point is that that's what this is about. This is about understanding the Holy Trinity. And this is about understanding the Father, the Holy Ghost, and the Son, because it's about recognizing how our mind comes together. The sacred masculine Father comes together with the Holy Ghost, the Mother. Because remember, Holy Ghost is the Holy Mother, being the principle of the invisible forces, the Spirit, right? So the Holy Ghost is the Holy Spirit because it's the invisible forces. That's what we really have to get through to people who, like to literalize all this stuff, in other supernatural ways. But it's about understanding that within. It's about understanding that the unseen forces are the sacred feminine principle. And so the emergence of the sacred masculine and the sacred feminine are what creates or what generates this, the masculine force, the masculine action, which is the child, the male child. And the reason that it's a male child is because that is an action principle. It's what's generated from mother and father. Because like, even when you think about one of the most beautiful things that I've ever come to realize about the trivium is the physical family, familial trivium process, which is, you have your father who is the input, right? You have your mother who is the processor of the input, and then you have the output, which is you, right? So you are the product of the mother and father trivium in the natural physical world. So this is a correspondence in the spiritual of the self, of you, of your soul, because what this is about refining yourself to understand what you are, who you are, and what your purpose is, and how you can be better by bridging these hemispheres together to create a positive change in the world by aligning to natural law and understanding the difference between right and wrong and having balance. That's how we find balance in the world. And a lot of people know this deep down. Everybody has this information already in them. This type of knowledge is about helping us reveal that which is already here, right? So it's about making the connection through the sciences, through the arts. And there is just so much you can reveal out of this one image. It's just insane.
Yeah, that's right.
It really is an encyclopedia,
Yeah, definitely. Lots of stuff to decode there. Very good explanation there. Again, plenty of other stuff to talk about, and maybe we'll do another. We'll see each other again, and we'll do another episode where we'll go a little bit further on the Masonic trestle boards, because usually it's kind of a big topic to discussing in just one podcast episode, I guess. So I guess we'll leave it here for today. So I want to thank you very much for having been here, Nate, and we'll see if we can work something else in the near future.
I appreciate that, man. It means a lot to me that you gave me the the time and the privilege of explaining these arcane ideas and these important points, because these are the things that really need to be talked about a lot more. And it is because of people like you that are giving this information a chance that it does get a chance to go out to other people. And I definitely look forward to coming back on here and definitely laying out more foundations. So thank you again, Francesco. I think it's this is awesome, man. I'm really happy to finally get on here.
Yeah, man. Yeah, that was a very interesting show and informative, and an informative one. So I hope people enjoyed it. I hope people will, reflect a little bit more on the meaning of, of Freemasonry and its teachings. And yeah, other than that, I guess I will catch everybody next time. And yeah, Nate, you want to say something before we go?
Yeah, if anybody's interested, you can go to cubbyhole.com, start at podcast number 1, work your way forward. And also, if you want to learn more about Freemasonry, we start somewhere between 42 and the current show, which is 57 or 56. And I'll be continuing, and Brandon and Douglas will be continuing Freemasonry as we move forward. So if you want to know more in depth, you can find a lot of that knowledge there. But obviously, do your own homework and go everywhere looking for Freemasonry. Go into Manly P. Hall or Mark Passio or Albert Churchward or Albert Mackey. There's so many references. So just wanted to say that.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think, Albert Mackey, I think it has quite a good... he has a book on the Masonic symbolism, so among all the other authors, of course. So
that's encyclopedia.
Oh, yeah.
That is crucial. That is such an important series.
Yeah, so plenty of information out there on Freemasonry. And that being said, yeah, it's I guess it's all for me for today, and until next time.